So why am I telling ghost stories?
I
Here in
want to know.
Cambridge?
I want to know. I like them, but I want to know.
They say that Cambridge is the most haunted city on the eastern shore of the Chesapeake Bay. And these 2 blocks on High Street is where all the hauntings take place.
I can understand that. It's a beautiful old road.
There's a lot of history. There were
Yeah.
a lot of wars, Revolutionary War, Civil War, a lot of things.
A lot of old buildings being regentrified. Yeah, very cool.
We've got a short sail today, only about 12 nautical miles, to Cambridge, Maryland. From Town Creek in Oxford, we head into the Tread Avon River, then south, and then east along the Choptank River. Finally, we turn into Cambridge Creek to reach our destination. We had heard that there was a place to dock our boat in Cambridge, so we asked a boat tied up along the concrete pier, and they informed us that this was the public pier and it was free. What an excellent find. The public pier is right next to the Dorchester County Office Building and a short walk into the city center. We decide to take a spot close to Snapper's Waterfront Cafe. So we get our lines and our fenders set up to dock along the concrete pier. And the couple who gave us the helpful information was also kind enough to give us a hand docking Lab Mariner. A special thanks goes out to Phil and Kathy.
So Nuala is off the boat. Why is she off the boat?
Because she went to say hello to someone who wanted to say hello, and instead of just leaning over, she actually jumped off the boat, and that's not acceptable.
So she is in timeout.
She was giving us the long ears like, I'm in timeout. And now she's up. See, look, that's the ears of, I've been bad, please let me back in. See how they're like dipped so low? Watch. I'll get her to put her ears up, peek it up. Nuala, go straight on. Okay, good go. Let me help you out there, Nuala. Maybe that was Daddy's fault.
We're not used to using these.
No.
We're at a cement pier, which is
We should
unusual.
Nuala, come. Oka, come on. Nuala. Nubis, good girl.
Notice the extra grip pad.
Yeah, they were sliding
Ramp.
halfway down. Sometimes that ramp gets pretty steep. Oh, it is closed. Can't even walk up there to check it out.
No. Everything's closed nowadays.
Wow. This is beautiful.
It's got an elevator too. I have a feeling that the original did not have an elevator. Since this is a replica, it had neither an elevator or air conditioning. Quite lovely.
It's gorgeous.
And it's interesting, the first time I looked at it, I thought that it was broken, but it's actually cut out.
Sorry?
They did it up very nicely.
So this was probably original, and they replaced it with this.
Yeah, so we can see the original, we can see the reproduction. Oh, look at that one. That's really cool. It's so gorgeous. Oh, this is the public pier and courtesy dock. Quite nice. And also a mile-long boardwalk. Quite beautiful. fishing pier here used to be the bridge that went across, and they just repurposed it as a fishing bridge, which is really smart.
One of the first things visitors to Cambridge see when driving in is this mural, which depicts the community around Pine Street, which is one of the oldest African American communities in the country that dates back to the mid-1800s. In this compelling mural, painted on the Harriet Tubman Museum, she extends a hand as if to reach out to lead a runaway slave to freedom.
So how was the picnic?
It was awesome. It was. And once again, I was neutral on it. I was looking forward to it, but a little neutral. And it was so good that I'm now asking one a week.
Do you know anything about the site that we're at? This is the Dorchester County District Courthouse.
I think they do trials here.
They do trials here. So this, years ago, was the place where they used to have a slave auction, and they used to do executions and whippings here.
Sounds like a,
Has a very sordid past.
yes, good things are improving.
Yes. So I wanted to do a ghost walk, but it turns out that the ghost walk only runs on Saturdays, and we're not going to be here on a Saturday. So I thought I would throw together my own.
Was that part of
ghost
your
walk.
disappointment today that I didn't know about?
Yes, I was really
Yeah.
disappointed, but we'll do
Yeah.
our own. So I did a
Yeah.
little sleuthing, and I came up with some ghost stories. But before we start, I thought I would ask you if you had any ghost stories that you like to tell around the campfire.
Luckily, as a Boy Scout leader, I always got to ask the senior patrol leader to organize something like that. And then all the scouts would have stories, so I never had to have a story for them.
Did you listen to any of their stories, and can you tell one?
I was a complete scout leader and just was there for the ride and did not absorb their great stories.
You didn't listen to any of their stories.
I was too busy making sure they were safe and having a great experience.
So let me tell you one of my favorite ghost stories when I was a kid around the campfire.
Okay.
It's a very well-known one. It's called The Hook. Have you heard The Hook?
The Hook? No.
Oh, so it starts off with this couple, and they go to Lover's Lane. They're in a car. They're kissing away, and suddenly over the radio comes an announcement. So they stop for a moment, and it has to do with a man from the mental asylum has escaped, and he's a killer, and he has a hook on his hand, and that's how you're supposed to be able to tell him apart from everybody else. So the girl's really nervous. So she's like, we gotta leave. We gotta go now. I gotta go home. So the boy's like, well, I'll just lock the doors. No problem. Because he didn't want to give up his kissing. He's a boy. So he locked the doors, and they're kissing for a little while longer. And suddenly the girl just stops, and she's like, we have to leave now.
I mean, the girls don't like to kiss too.
Something like that.
That is a horror story.
So the boy is like, okay, we'll take you home. She's obviously nervous. So he drives home. And he gets out of the car because he's going to open her door. He's chivalrous. And he walks around, and suddenly he stops. And the girl's like, okay, what's going on? She looks back, and she sees him stop there. So she waits, and she waits a while longer. Finally, she's like, gets out of the car, and she's like, what is it? And she looks down at the handle of the car door, and there is a hook with a stump on it. Did you get it?
Mocha seemed to have gotten it. He's quite uncomfortable with that story.
That used to be one of my favorite stories.
Okay.
All right, you don't seem to be pleased with that. All right, you ready for my first story?
Sure.
We are in front of 401 High Street. It is now Richardson Maritime Museum. It used to be the office of a prominent businessman back in the 1900s. And in 1929, when the stock market crashed on Black Friday, he hung himself. And he hung himself in the attic in this building here. And they say that you can hear the creaking of a rope with something really heavy on it up in the rafters. So should we stop and listen?
I'm listening.
I don't think we're here. I think you have to come late at night.
I see a number of lines inside the Maritime Museum.
Number of ropes? Up in the attic, though.
I guess you're right. They are ropes since they're not on a boat. Once they're on a boat, they're called lines.
Okay.
I wonder if they're called ropes or lines once you use them to hang yourself.
I don't know. It is creepy. So we're at Christ Church, and it is late in the evening, and it looks scary, just as is. But I'm going to tell you the story of Ann Weller. Ann Weller was the wife of the rector at this church, and she died at about age 23, and her gravestone is over there under the yew tree. And what you'll see there now is a new gravestone, because her old gravestone actually was subsumed by the yew tree, and it actually grew into the yew tree, so they had to put a new tombstone down for her. And they say that late at night, when it's quiet, you can hear her singing. She used to be the choir director, and you can hear her singing, and it's not like a normal singing sound, it's more of a buzzing sound.
I do see the gravestone, at least. I don't hear any buzzing, though. Actually, I do.
Oh, it's cicadas.
But it may be all those electrical light bulbs over there.
It could be the electrical ones. But late at night, when there aren't any cars, supposedly you'll hear buzzing, which is kind of like a singing, buzzing sound.
That's a really funky tree, by the way, too.
It is, and it's cool because there are a whole bunch of gravestones that are kind of packed up under there. So the yew tree grew over all these gravestones, including her. So behind us is the Cayley Bailey house, and there are actually 2 stories associated with this house. This house was moved here from Annapolis back in the 1800s.
Okay.
And the first story has to do with that movement, and it's called the Floating Ghost Story. So you ready for the story?
Yes.
The first story.
I'm waiting.
So supposedly, several years ago, there were workers working in the house, and one of the workers looked in one of the windows, and they saw somebody looking down with a red coat on from the second story.
Okay.
They thought that was really peculiar because the second story was being redone, so there couldn't be anybody up there. So he went into the house to check it out, and there wasn't anybody there. And a number of other people had seen red coats around here, and they believe that there was a Revolutionary War soldier who was hiding during the war, because he didn't want to be in the war anymore, and he was still hiding in the house.
Okay.
And when it came from Annapolis over here to Cambridge, he came with it, and he didn't know the war was over.
All right.
So that's the first story. The second story. So the second story has to do with a Chevelle mirror that was found up in the attic. The woman that bought the house liked the mirror, so she brought it down to one of the bedrooms. And what she saw was a little girl in the mirror, which freaked her out, obviously. So she hid the mirror back up in the attic. And a lot of other strange occurrences have been happening here. So, interesting house. So behind us is the Goldsboro house. And let me tell you the little story about...
Can I say something right now?
Yeah, go ahead. It's scary.
It looks scary already. They're working on it.
So the story I'm going to tell you is about Wilhelmina Goldsboro. And she fell in love with a man named Thomas Craddock. And the Craddock family fell out of favor in the community, and it was decided that they couldn't marry. So instead she was put into an arranged marriage. And she ended up dying about 28, and she died probably in childbirth. And it's said that she was so unhappy because she wasn't able to marry Thomas Craddock that she came to haunt her childhood house where she had all these happy memories. So people have found jewelry missing, and they've found women's clothing moved around. So it's believed that she haunts this house because that's where she was happy.
Jim must have been really scared by those ghost stories that I was telling because we got up before the sun was even starting to rise. We left our dock in the dark and headed up Cambridge Creek and passed by the Choptank River Lighthouse. Finally, we hit Choptank River, and as you'll see, people were starting to go to work and the sun was finally starting to come out.